Hey everybody, this is Ricardo speaking, and what I'll be doing here is doing a quick demonstration of FirstRate, which will hopefully help you get up and running. Now, I know that we ran through a couple of things in class, but I just thought to do this just to give you some more help in how you can go about filling out the different fields here, setting up your plan, and also some of the properties that you can assign to each element, the zones and the walls, and the ceiling and roof insulation, all of these things, which are all going to affect your energy rating at the end. So over to the project panel here, this is the default sort of menu that you will get. Now, what I have here on another FirstRate instance is the file example that I showed in class just this week. And so what you want to do is fill out some of the information here. This can be just your name under client's name, postal address. You don't have to give us your exact address, that's fine. But do include your suburb, because that's going to affect the energy rating. Now down here, you're going to have some other things that are pre-filled for you based on your signing in information for FirstRate. Under declaration of interest, you can just say declaration not completed. If you leave it as the ... default, then it won't calculate it once you hit the button at the end. So just set that to declaration not completed. That should be okay. Under postcode, again, the postcode of your suburb. And under principal or alternative climate zone, it's just Perth Airport in our case. Now, for any one of my students who are my TRI students and live outside of Australia, just to be able to use the software, you can set a Perth postcode similar to this, and also just select the Perth Airport. And that's because this software is specific for calculating energy ratings in Australia. So just pretend that the house you live in is in Australia. Cool. Now down here, there's some other options. What we want to do is we'll just set the rating mode to new home, as if your house is a new home. Exposure level, there's a few different ones here. If you're, I think for most people, the exposure level will be suburban, meaning it is located in a suburb in Perth. So there's other houses that surround it. For the floor height above ground level, you can set that, I think a 0.1 is reasonable. This is essentially how high your internal floor is from the external natural ground level. So this should do the job here at 0.1. And then we have some other information here that we fill out. The NCC class will be a class 1A. Class 1 refers to residential type buildings under the National Construction Code, which is the type of building we are working on. Cool. And then once this is all, the ceiling penetrations here, principal downlight type, you can set to the one that is most common in your house. If you don't know your type of lighting, we'll just set it to LED for the time being. And then we'll jump over to the plan tab, which you see here. Now, I'm going to go back to my other project here on the plan tab, and this is a blank canvas for us, and I can show you how you can load in your drawing, which will be the floor plan drawing of your house that you will have drafted in AutoCAD or any other software that you would like to use. So to load the background in, what you got to do, just bring your mouse cursor to this open space, right click and go load background, and then go through your files and find your file. So this is the one I'll be using here, plan drawing class example. You guys should all have this drawing because I emailed it to you. And we'll load that in. And it'll show up here. And we're going to tick this option here that says find snappable points. And then we'll click add to project. It'll load up. And there we go. We have the drawing in FirstRate. Now, the first thing you want to do after that is scale your drawing so that it is set to the correct scale. Normally, when it comes in, it will not be to scale. Even if you plotted the drawing at a 1:100 or 1:200, when you bring it in, there's a very good chance it won't be to the right scale. So to do that, it's always good to have an overall measurement on your drawing, and that is going to be the something to refer to as you're doing this. So that number, that 23,960, what we want to do is, by the way, I'm just moving around the screen here like this, the pen, by using the middle mouse button, and zooming in is literally just the scroll wheel. So in order to scale the drawing, we have to come over here to your tools and click this one here, the dimension tool. And after clicking it, we have to use a reference dimension that should be included as part of your drawing. And what we'll do is click at the start point and then go all the way to the end and click at the end. Now, to snap any lines that you're drawing onto the horizontal axis or to the vertical axis, all you got to do is hold down the Shift key as you're drawing and it'll snap for you like that. So we're going to come all the way over here at the end, hold down the Shift key and click. There we go. So now we have this line drawn, and we can see that whereas the drawing, that dimension should be 23,960, in FirstRate it's currently 28,297 or thereabouts. So all we got to do now with this line drawn in, the dimension line in FirstRate drawn in, is right click it, click Set Scale, and then in here we're going to input this number, the 23,960, and then we'll hit the OK, and ta-da! It's scaled now to the 23,960, so they both match one another. Great, so now the plan is ready for us to start adding in zones. Alright, so what we'll do now is to start adding in the zones that make the individual rooms of the house. What I'm going to do here for this example is take this bedroom as a start. To do a zone, we have to click here on the tool, Insert Zone, come to the drawing, and then click the points that make the footprint of the room, just like this. I'm holding down the Shift key, by the way, as I'm clicking around, so that it's vertical or horizontal, and there we go, we have a zone. Now I'm going to switch back to my pointer cursor here, and this is a bedroom, so I'm going to click in the zone and come over to the panel on the side here and set the type of zone. So we just have to find bedroom. There, we'll click it, there we go. Now, when you draw a zone inside of FirstRate, you can then double click inside it to tweak values for the floor, which will show up on the side here. You can also click on these elements here, these lines that form an outline of the zone, and they represent the walls, and these can also be tweaked individually on the side there. And we can then add openings by using the door or the window tool and then clicking inside of a wall. So I'm going to click the window, come over here, and there we go. I'm just switching back to my cursor, and I can come in here and scale this window so it looks like the window on my wall. And after doing that initial zone there, what I'll do is just quickly draw another 2 zones in here to show you what happens. So here's bedroom 2, and here is bedroom 3. And as I'm drawing these, I am thinking to myself, they have different footprint. Bedroom 3 is different to bedrooms 1 and 2 in terms of the footprint, and I wonder if that impacts the performance of bedroom 3 in relation to the other 2. So just add these zones in here. All right. And so now we have all 3 rooms in there. What we want to do is click on the individual rooms and change the type over to bedroom. What you can do as well is you can select multiple zones at the same time by holding down your control key. So if I click here, here, and here, I have all 3 of them, and I can come down to type and go bedroom. That way you don't have to change each one individually. You can do the same thing with walls, by the way. You can click here on this internal wall, this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one, and then come over to the side, find the type of wall that it is, and then we'll click that. Another thing that we want to do while we're here, and very important by the way, is the orientation of the home in relation to north. Now, in this drawing here that I gave you guys, you will see there is actually a north point over here. It points directly down, but currently we are facing the opposite direction according to FirstRate. So we can change the degrees here over to 180, and it'll flip that arrow around for us so it matches up the actual orientation of the home in relation to north. Very important, and this will be important not just for this, by the way, but every studio, every project you'll be doing in practice and into the future. Okay, so that's really good. And from this zone, we will also come in here and draw all the other zones. Now, some types of rooms, such as the powder room, the laundry, and the bath, they don't have their own type under this drop-down menu. And to find out what those rooms classify as under the FirstRate software, all we gotta go is come over here, help, and then user manual. And I'll bring it over here for you. And then what we will do is, find what each one of these ones mean here, daytime and unconditioned, because I'm not too sure what these two mean, for example. So if we search up unconditioned in this user manual, so I'm going to type it in here. And there is one page specifically here, page 77, that actually tells me what each zone type means. So unconditioned, which is the one we're looking for, tells me that laundries, bathrooms, airlocks, WCs, or powder rooms that have an external wall with at least one or more ventilation openings, they classify as unconditioned. And that is exactly what, and that is exactly what these rooms here are. So unconditioned, unconditioned, unconditioned. And then here, this type will be bedroom and bedroom, similar to this one. I also encourage you that you label the names here so it's easier later on when you are evaluating the energy performances of your individual spaces, and you can make comparisons between them. When it comes to doors and windows in your house, what you will do is use the tools here, door and window, but once you add them in, like we did with this one here, we can select it and we can actually just change it under style between window, door, and then there's this one here called permanent, which just means it's a permanent opening. So for example, between this bedroom wing hallway here and the dining area, there would be a permanent opening. We would draw one zone through here, the hallway, and then one zone for this dining room, and place an opening here that is permanent. If I show you here on this other model, you can see we have this zone is one thing, and a hallway is classified as daytime under the manual, and then the dining here, which I have also classified as daytime, and between them there is this opening here, and it's set to permanent. There you go. Also guys, when it comes to windows, you can actually set the type of window that it is by coming over to the side here and under type once again. Now this window here, for example, in this project, it is set to an aluminum frame window. It is double glazing, it has an air gap in the middle, and the panels of glass are clear and clear. So this is essentially what this is telling me. Now, if you don't know exactly what the windows in your home are composed of, that is okay. I would say just have a look through the options that show up for you and pick one that you think looks reasonable to you. For example, an aluminium frame if your windows are aluminium. It could be a timber frame if they're timber. And then if you know whether they're single glazing or double glazing, you can add that in. But otherwise, this should be sufficient. But then again, do make sure that the window sizes match the windows in your home. FirstRate will also allow you to draw in eaves for your building. That is where the roof overhangs, extends beyond your external walls, and generally it provides shading to your room. So here, for example, we have the north direction set straight down the page, which is where north is in relation to this particular building. And we can create these eaves, and I'll show you how to do that. I'll delete this one, okay? And after you have drawn in your zone, select the wall which will be affected the most by the presence of this eave. In this case here, we have an eave there. You can see this dashed line running through that represents the eave above. So what I'll do is right click on the wall and I'm going to click on create eave. It'll ask me then some information here. All I'm going to do for the time being is just give this a value of 100 on projection and it'll place it there for me. I can then drag the eave and place it about there where that's where the edge of the eave is, and I'm just tweaking it here so it matches up, and there we go. So there is an eave drawn in. You can use the same technique when you're drawing your patio structure. That was another question that came up in class. What if I have a patio or al fresco or any sort of open outdoor structure that could impact the amount of sunlight that my house, my enclosed building area will be receiving? Well, you can also use the Eave tool to represent where that structure is. So here we can see some columns, these here, and these lines here represent the roof above the patio, and we are associating each one of these eaves back to a wall of the building. Okay, and a big question that came up during class is how is it that you can find out what your house is made of if you're not too sure? And we discussed that the quick technique where you knock on the wall or you can knock on the ground and you hear whether it is hollow or solid, and that should give you some clue as to the type of construction. Now, it might be difficult to determine for sure what some of the materials are or some of the insulation values for your, let's say, wall bats or ceiling bats are. And in that case, I would say just to pick a placeholder for the purpose of this task. But in any case, what I'll do is I'll jump over to my tablet view where I drew a couple of things for you guys, and hopefully it'll give you a bit more understanding on what are some common wall construction types and I guess flooring and also roof for suburbs, residential suburban in Australia, or Perth specifically. Alrighty, so now we are over here on our tablet view, and what we'll do is just quickly go through this floor, walls, and then the roof foil and insulation. These are 3 things that you need to know for the use of FirstRate, and they will help you to get a more accurate energy rating for your home. So we'll zoom in here on floor to start off with. And I'll just start to read up the top there, but common construction in Perth suburban residential. So for flooring, knock on your floor. If it is hollow, it is likely a timber framed floor. If it is solid, it is likely a concrete slab. Now, directly below them, you see in orange there, those are the FirstRate codes that are associated with those types of construction. It's great that FirstRate already has a library that is specific for Australian construction, so you don't have to create your materials or anything. I found that these are pretty good and they represent the actual construction, so you can use those. For the floor of each zone, make sure that you set a connects to value, and you can do so on that little menu that pops up on the side. There should be a connects to, and you just tweak that value to what it should be. If your house, for example, is a single story and you knock on the ground and it's solid, then there's a very good chance it is a concrete slab, in which case you can use that FRCSOG, this one here. Okay, so that is just the concrete slab on ground is what CSOG means. So there is the flooring one. For walls, you should knock on your wall. If the wall is hollow, it is likely a timber stud frame wall or a type of framed construction. If it is solid, it is likely a type of brick construction or masonry. And again, this is all just general. Generally, these are the types of construction. They could be different, but if you don't know for sure, this is a good way to go about it for this task. And then here what I've done for you is I have broken down what are some very common wall types in Perth residential houses. We'll start off here with external walls. Now, this is a common composition here, the double brick cavity wall. And for all of these, you can see the code up the top there. Basically, this wall here, it consists of it consists of an external brick leaf that you see there, an air gap in the middle here, and then an internal brick leaf. So that is a double brick cavity wall. Here is a brick veneer wall. So it uses a combination of the brick and timber stud frame. So externally we have a layer here of brick, and then internally we have a stud frame, and in between these timber bits that we're cutting through in this view, we have what is called insulation. Oops. So insulation, this area here, it's typically filled in with some sort of insulation, which you can actually set up inside of your FirstRate if this is your type of construction. And then internally, generally, this wall is finished with a plasterboard finish. Cool. This next type of wall is called reverse brick veneer. It is just like brick veneer, the previous one, but it's flipped or mirrored, whichever you prefer. Externally, we're gonna have the stud frame, and then with a type of, and I should actually change this little name here. Instead of plasterboard, it would be some kind of weatherboard. So I'm just changing the name here as I go. Da-da-da. Get the tool. Da-da-da. All right. So this is sort of how this works there. Externally, we have the timber frame, and then finished with a weatherboard or some kind of cladding, and then internally we have the brick. What is amazing between these two types of walls, the brick veneer here, brick veneer and reverse brick veneer, is that the reverse brick veneer actually performs better thermally than the brick veneer wall, just generally speaking, if the same insulation is used in both. And that has to do with the fact that this external skin here has a good insulative capacity, and it'll resist the extremes of external thermal temperature. Meanwhile, the internal brick layer has higher what's called thermal mass, and it's able to absorb and store heat and then re-release it at a slower, sustained kind of pace. And so it helps to stabilize the internal temperature while resisting very high or very low external temperature. So that's why these two types of walls, they are literally the same but flipped, yet they perform differently. And then this is the final example here of the external walls. This one here is just a timber stud frame wall inside of FirstRate. That's, from what I could tell, it's called weatherboard. And it is quite literally just a stud frame. Now, this type of construction, it might be more common. There's houses in Fremantle, for example, maybe heritage suburbs that use this type of construction more commonly. But in any case, this should give you a hand in finding out. Just knock on all the walls that are external walls of your house and see if you hear anything that can give you clues as to what they could be. These four here are quite common. Internally, guys, it's typically a brick wall, like that, or it is a stud frame wall. So again, it's the same as the external ones, but they are reduced down to a single leaf because all they're doing is separating the rooms now. So the brick wall is quite literally a single brick inside of FirstRate. There you go. And the plasterboard wall, it's a stud frame, and it is typically finished with plasterboard on either side. Notice how this, the stud frame wall internally has no batting insulation. That is not done very frequently, as far as I know, because typically that insulative row is, I guess, given to the external walls, where that sort of transition point between the external and the internal environments, whereas these guys here, They are just separating the rooms. With that being said, sometimes internal walls can play structural roles in a building, and so they will be bigger and more robust, and they may not be one of these true types that I'm showing here. So do your due diligence and have a look, inspect the walls, even internally in your house, to see if there's any that stand out. Cool. So I hope that this helps you find out which type of wall construction your house has. And if you're not too sure, I would suggest that you pick one of these and also make some type of meaningful comment on them if you think it is helping the performance of the room or reducing it. Look at the values that FirstRate gives you and see if you can extract anything thoughtful from that analysis. Finally, just here the roof foil and insulation. Typically, houses have some form of insulation in their roof space, and inside of FirstRate, you can set a roof foil and insulation value for every room, every zone that you draw in. And if you don't know the insulation value of your ceiling, your roof space in your homes, then you can set it to like an R2.0 or R2.5. I think is a good place to start in terms of that. Alrighty, yeah, so I figured I would do this because I understand, everyone's trying to understand what their house is built from, and these are some common types of construction here in Perth for houses, and I hope that it helps you guys. So with that knowledge of common construction structures and methods in Perth suburban residential that we just looked through, in this house here, what we can see in the plan that I have provided you guys, we can zoom in and see these external walls here. They are double brick cavity walls. You can see there's an external brick leaf here, an air gap, and an internal brick leaf. Meanwhile, the internal walls that we see here, they are just single brick internal walls. So that gives it away for us. This is what this house is made of. It's a brick wall house. So now that we know that, we are able to come back into FirstRate and select our walls. In this case here, I'm going to pick this external wall and set it to brick cavity because that's the type of wall. We can even see it in the background there. This is the type of wall. And we can do that for all of the external walls, holding down Control like we discussed earlier. Pick all the different walls. Come in here, go brick cavity, and that will set all of them to brick cavity at the same time. Internally, we know that we're working here with single brick, so I have set that as the wall type for the internal walls. If you happen to have stud frame construction or timber framed, then what you can do, or any type of frame, it could be a metal frame for example as well, you can select your wall, come over to type, and I'm gonna do brick veneer in this instance, which is brick externally and then timber framed internally. And we can set an insulation value for the timber stud frame, which is the insulation that goes in between the members of the timber frame, okay? So here under insulation and air gaps, I'll double click into that. And here we have this one element that is called the insulation placeholder within the wall structure that we see up the top. And we can actually change that material by clicking on here inside the insulation layer material and pick up the top here under material selection insulation bulk specified resistance one of these different options. So let's say I will pick, for example, this glass fiber bed R2.0. And by the way, you don't have to know exactly what your insulation value is, but if it's timber frame externally, it would very likely have one of these in there. So you can pick, let's say R2.0 as a starting point, and that's gonna factor it into the wall composition at the top. We'll hit OK. You can see that the wall has now been updated to have those values, and it's gonna offer a more accurate calculation and results around your home that way. So with that in mind as well, the next thing could be, for example, the floor construction. The floor construction in this particular home is a concrete slab on ground. And so what we'll do, being a single story home as well, so I will enter in here by double clicking a zone. You can actually see a menu on the side for the floor type. Now the floor type here, we're going to set, in this instance, true, this FR5CSOG, which is concrete slab on ground, and we'll just select that. There we go. If your house, if you're doing, say, a house that has a suspended timber floor, or maybe a two-story house, then for your floor of the first floor, or even ground floor if it is suspended, there's other types of flooring here. I will say just pick one that you believe is accurate to what your floor is. For example, if it's timber, you have timber there. Don't be confused, by the way, you might see a timber vinyl finish, for example, on a floor, but that could still be a concrete slab underneath it. But the knocking exercise should give you some information. Sometimes just walking through the house will tell you what the material is. And then guys, over to this zoning tab here up the top, if we go over to ceilings, which is up here, we can actually set the insulation value for the ceiling, the roof space in your home. And we can do that by clicking on this triple dot and then entering a number here for added bulk insulation. Now, as we mentioned during the tablet presentation, this is very common in almost all construction to bring it up to a good, the minimum 6-star rating. So you can enter a number here. You can start with 2.5 and see what that provides you in terms of when you calculate it. Here what we'll do is, while in the zoning tab and we have the zones displayed under ceilings, we're gonna click this topmost zone name, hold down shift and click the bottommost one, and it'll give us here every area, okay, that's associated with each one of these zones. What we'll do now is click the topmost one and click on the bottommost one with the holding down the shift key once again, and we have all of them selected. And we'll come here and change the value. Now what's going to happen, we'll just have to change it one time, and look at that, it'll update all of the instances for every other area at the same time. So that is going to save us a lot of time. You can do the same thing, guys, if you come over, let's say floors. So floors, if we have bedroom 2 up the top here, we'll hold down shift, click the bottommost one, it'll give us everything. And if your whole house, for example, is a concrete slab on ground, then you can hold down the shift key, click on the bottommost one there, and then change the floor type to whatever it is, and it'll update everything for you. So it shouldn't take you all that much time to get all of these elements modeled into this space. Okay, and with all of that being done, what you do next is hit the calculate button. Oh, and we have an error pop up. Okay, so errors popping up like this is very common. By the way, I deliberately messed up the model so this would happen. Just to show you some examples, but it'll tell me here what the error is. The window type in master bedroom is not one of your selected windows. Please review your selected windows and filters in the Windows tab. Okay, master bedroom and window. Right, so if we come over here, master bedroom is here, okay. And you can see here, that's because we had labeled the room name initially, great. Okay, this window here, type, it has a type, it's there. If we click this one, type, yep, good. This one here, oh, there we go. So the type, it's still set to select ... All we gotta do is assign a something to the type, and so that is now sorted. If we come over to calculate, then okay, so there's another error now in zone studio that has the area 13.7 meters squared, blah blah blah. It is not above a zone, but the connects floor value is specified as drawn. Okay, connects floor value is specified as drawn. That's the issue, and it's the studio. Okay, so if we come over here on the studio, I'll enter it here, and if we come over to the side, connects floor is set to as drawn. Okay, so that is the issue. So what we'll do here, this is a ground floor slab that's set on the ground, and it's a single-story building, so it'll connect to the ground. Okay, for some of these other options here, you can again refer to the manual that you find under help and user manual and search up what each one of them means if you believe your house is built from one of the other options, and that'll help you with that. But anyway, we have now changed this property here to connect to ground. Great. And now calculate. Let's go. Okay. Well, there's no errors now, so it is loading. And there we go. We got a star rating on the bottom, 6.6. It's above the minimum 6 stars. That is good. Okay, so this house here, with the specifications and information we have provided the software, it could be built to those specifications, those insulation values and everything. Great. Okay, so that is a starting point on how you can model your house inside of the software. And this is, of course, in relation to your entire house. And once you have done this, you will also have to make meaningful comments based on your analysis of each zone. Now, to understand how each zone performs, there are a couple of tools available inside of FirstRate that will allow you to do that. So a really cool one to start with, in my opinion, is under View, and you go to Heat Map and Energy Values. This here tells you the temperature of each room in the house. Okay, and you can pick a time of the year here. For example, a cold day in winter on the 5th of August, for example, which we're not too far from at the time of this recording, is we can change the time of the day and see how the different rooms react. We can see, for example, if we had picked the kitchen for analysis, for example, we might want to explain why it is that at towards the end of the day, on a cold winter day, the kitchen is still pretty warm for compared to other rooms in the house. If we pick a hot day in summer, on the other hand, and we scroll through, which will be the 23rd of December, it is giving us there. We can always change the day manually, but let's do hot day in summer. Okay, and go through here. And again, we can see how these different rooms perform in relation to one another. Now, this is quite sort of, I guess, shallow observations in a way that we're just getting these numbers showing up to us, but it is a good place to start, I'd say. All right, and really useful here as well is the Analytics tab, which is going to help you a lot with your reports and making some meaningful comments about your analysis of the space, which is what you have to do for your submission. Is we'll come over here, Analytics, Internal Temperature Graph, and we'll click on Calculate and Load. So we'll let that run for a second. And after a little bit of time loading, we do get this window pop up here. And on the side, we have all the zones that are associated to this project. So let's say that the room we're looking at here is this living room, for example. And I just noticed that this window is out of place, so I'll place it here. So again, you can see the window on the plan. I'm just aligning it here. There we go. And there are also windows here and here. The living room I thought was an interesting room to look at for the purposes of this exercise because it's quite symmetrical and formal in how it is in relation to the rest of the house. Maybe it feels quite important with the double door and the symmetry, and then these 3 windows that face the street. Also worth noting, none of the windows in the living room face north. There's also an eave that runs through here. All of these things, guys, do comment on them. Talk about how it is connected to other areas of the house. For example, the hallway here, the entry hallway, and adjacent to it, the kitchen. Maybe these are 2 rooms I can compare the living room to. Or it could be maybe a room on the opposite side of the house if you think that's relevant to explain your understanding of the living. But anyway, take the living, for example, as my example here. I will switch it on this menu, and during a cold week in winter, it tells me here, these are the temperatures I would expect. This is just a single day. Sorry, let's see. Okay, cold week in winter. So between August 5th and August 12th, we can see how the temperature in the house fluctuates inside of the living area. And where it drops all the way down to these troughs here, and then the peaks as well of that graph. And I guess it fluctuates between, this is about, just above 18, 18.5, and then on the bottom here, 15 or thereabouts. This is the lowest, but then it brings it back up to 16. This is, of course, without any electricity, any mechanical loading, air conditioning, HVAC units, anything. This is just passively what would happen in the space, in the simulation here. So let's compare that again to the kitchen, which is literally the room next to it, also another habitable room in the house. So what we'll do is bring in the kitchen now, and we'll see the difference straight away. We can see how the kitchen here actually spikes up a lot more towards the end of the day. It actually builds up heat and it kind of keeps it here. And we might start to wonder, why is that the case? Well, if we look at the plan, we can see, for example, the living, as we discussed, has no windows to north, so it's not getting that direct sunlight from the north. It's only getting sunlight here to the east, okay? So during sunrise, there will be sunlight coming in. During the rest of the day, the sunlight will be hitting this wall here, and the eave is blocking some of that as well. Meanwhile, if we take the kitchen is open over to this dining area. You can see in here, it's a bit hard to see, but I have shown a permanent opening between these two zones. And the kitchen forms part of this dining. The dining actually receives a lot of sunlight. You can see here this corner, it'll receive direct sunlight from the north. And that would obviously sort of enter into that kitchen area. The kitchen here is also a room that would heat up from the use of the appliances inside this area, all which use electricity and would heat up, and maybe that contributes, maybe cooking will contribute to the heat in the kitchen as well. And these things are why we have listed this area here as the kitchen living type of area. Great. So straight away, guys, we can start to make connections between them. What if we picked instead these bedrooms here? Bedrooms 1, 2, and 3. Let's take those. Let's say the bedroom I'm analyzing is this bedroom 3, because it is a bit more unique compared to the other two. So let's flick on here bedrooms 1, 2, and 3. And during a cold week in winter, I know I'm just doing cold week in winter, but there's other periods here that will allow you to study the room better and to make comments about them. So bedroom 3 is more closer, I guess, to other areas of the house, whereas bedrooms 2 and 1, they have 2 external walls here that could be receiving direct sunlight throughout the year, whereas bedroom 3 only has 1. Bedroom 3 has a window that faces north. Bedroom 2 also has a window that faces north. Bedroom 1 only has a window facing west. Okay? So all of these things we can talk about and see how they relate back to the data. So I'm just seeing here, bedroom 1 is the coolest bedroom of them all, and that makes sense. Bedroom 1 is on the southern side, so it receives the least direct sunlight. And we have also identified how bed 2 actually gets hotter than bedroom 3, partly because, bed 2 has the 2 external walls, bed 3 only has 1, but also because bed 3 is impacted the most by the patio structure. All right, so this should give you some better idea, I hope, how to use the software and the different things available. And of course, do have a look through the tabs yourself, and you might find some additional things there. Now, there are additional tools that are available to FirstRate, which will allow you to get an even more accurate rating and performance analysis of your home. But if you guys get it up to this level here for this assignment, that should be sufficient. And if you can draw some meaningful conclusions from your analysis and study of the data of your selected room and the building, that would be really good. And so good luck with FirstRate, and I hope this helped everybody.